Hey everyone, we are live. Thank you for joining us. If you were eagerly awaiting James, I'm afraid I've had to jump in for James, but we've still got Dan and Veronica here from the team. So looking forward to talking about engaging primary students in remote hybrid classrooms. We've got a range of great speakers all lined up for you today. So without further ado, we're going to get started. So hey Dan, hey Veronica, how are you both doing?
Hi Dan. Thank you so much. What about you?
Yeah, not too bad. So for those of you sort of vaguely new to AppsEvents, I'm based in the UK and also deal with some US-based training as well. Veronica, you're based in Prague and deal with our European training.
Yes, that's correct.
And Dan oversees it all from Prague as well. So
yeah. Currently in lockdown right now. People have probably seen it's Czech Republic is #1 worst country for COVID in the European Union now. So everything's closed, so good time to get some Google Learning in.
Yeah, we continue with our sort of remote, getting very used to our offices, as everyone is. So I'm just going to bring in our slides for today. So thank you for joining and registering and tuning in. I can see we've got a few people joining us live already. We've got a load of great speakers today. So we've got James, Kim, Katie, Kristen, and Rachel, who are going to be sharing on a variety of topics related to use of Google in the primary classroom, and obviously with a steer towards that distance or hybrid model that many schools are sort of grappling with as the situation is changing all the time. So before we get into that, I just wanted to sort of talk about ASA, who make these free events possible. So Dan, if I pass over to you, we'll just share a little bit about how ASA sort of support us in making these free events live every month.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So at AppsEvents, we're lucky to have had ASA as a sponsor for, I think, about 4 years now, just over 4 years. AppsEvents, every year we go out to ASA HQ in Taiwan and we get to work with the team, and it's really good. We actually get to give some feedback on the new designs for the Chromebooks. So, I mean, I'm a Chromebook user. I've got my ASA Chromebook right here. I use it at home. We've got 2 Chromebooks at home. My kids, my wife, all use them. So I'm a huge fan. I think the great thing about the devices is, number one, they're very durable. The Spin 11 is a great device. It's super durable. It's a convertible device, and that's the one I've seen most schools use. But secondly, I mean, genuinely ASA, I mean, I used an ASA Chromebook even before they were a sponsor. They have really good support, really good education-focused people. So I'd highly recommend, if you haven't already tried ASA Chromebooks, give them a try. There's an email here, and I think we've got a form on the next screen. Yeah, so if you go to gsummit.link/ASA, if you're interested, so you can put your information there. And also you can win a free place on one of our boot camps. We've got online summits and boot camps. Obviously, the summits are free, but we're running Google Educator certification boot camps starting every week. Chance to get certified for free. So give your details there at gsummit.link. Other thing about ASA is, I don't know if everyone saw, Ben, they've just announced some really cool new devices. They've got the Spin 513, which has got the Snapdragon Qualcomm processor. So really looks good. And we haven't got our hands on them yet, but they look like really good devices.
Yeah, we've got some references to some of those new devices as we go through the event as well. Also, if anyone wants to share as we go through, then please feel free to use our hashtags or our handle just to sort of engage with us as you share this event and it goes more wider. Great. Without further ado, I'll just leave that link on the screen for a little bit longer. But without further ado, we're now going to push on into the presenters. As we go through, this is obviously something we're used to doing in person for years and years. So James and many other presenters you're going to see, and Kim, have worked with us in a number of live events. We hope to get back to that one day. But for the meantime, they've got very used to presenting from home. And if you are looking for any PD, then please reach out to myself, Veronica, and Dan to sort of get some bespoke PD to support you through one of the more challenging times in education.
One extra thing, just guys, anyone watching this, if you could please smash the like button, give us a like on YouTube. We do these events completely free. If you give us a like, it helps the algorithm, gets more people to see it, and it means we can make more content. So please give us a like. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. So just a little bit of an overview. James is going to be joining us shortly. He's going to give you time back as an educator, which is very exciting. He's based in Malaysia, so we're passing over to him soon. We've also got Rachel. Rachel's based in the UK at a trust of primary schools just outside of London, on the outskirts of London. She supports them with their technology for learning across a number of different schools. We've also got Kim House, who's based just outside of Munich and is at an international school there. Katie, who's joining us from Barcelona, though I understand her travels have been varied. So hopefully we'll get to find out a little bit more about that. And then we also have Kristen, who's based in Hong Kong. So a global set of primary focused educators to share some real great tips with you along the way. So we're going to start with James. So Veronica and Dan, I'll just pop you into the background briefly to make space for James. I'll see you in a moment. And yeah, welcome, James. How are you doing?
Great, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I think we're just saying, very used to this location in my house.
Yes, yeah, we're all getting practiced at that, and I think what's really nice is a little bit more intimate. I'm actually talking to you, and I think that's really nice. Whereas you can see us direct, and you can see our screens directly, which is really lovely.
One of the other things I've noticed is we've been getting training engagements with people that might not normally have come to live events.
Yeah, absolutely.
Teachers are certainly sort of thrusting themselves to learn a little bit more about the tools that can help them through this time. So there's definitely some advantages and some stuff that will stay beyond this current situation as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? So my job is to give time back, isn't it, really?
Exactly that, yeah. I like the save 30 hours of planning per year. I'm going to hold you accountable to that bold claim.
Well, you can hold me accountable to it, because the English teachers in my department, that's what they're saying. It actually saves them. And I think that's a fairly conservative estimate for a primary teacher, because I currently teach secondary. I did teach primary ICT once upon a time, but I think in primary, this is going to save probably at least 30 hours. I'm not Donald Trump. I'm not over-claiming here. And let's see what the tool's like, and then you guys can decide how much time it could potentially save you.
Cool. So I'll be sitting in the background. Keep the questions coming in via the comments, and I can put those to James as we go through, just to make sure that everyone gets everything they need. So James, I'm just going to bring your screen in, if that's okay.
Brilliant. You can see the screen, the first slide.
Yeah, reading difficulty power tools. We're all ready to go.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to give you a quick demo of what this tool can do and how it can help you. And then we're going to go through a live system so you can see how it works. So what you can see on the left is a difficulty guide. And what this does, it provides a quick summary of the document. Now, the thing is, you can save yourself 20, 30 minutes of reading a document, spending a long time with it, and then discovering it's full of difficult words that are just completely unsuitable for your 8 or 9-year-olds. And so you can do what we call a copy, and I mean copy as in Control-C or Command-C, paste, you know the deal, copy and paste, assess. The difference is, unlike reading a normal document, you can do this in 30 seconds and know if this document is likely to be suitable for your 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 or 12-year-olds. So I think for Key Stage 2, this is absolutely perfect. In the case of the document to the left, we're talking about an unaided reading age. So what we have here is it enables you to quickly decide if a document is going to be worth using in a lesson. Straight decision. See how long a student might take to read it and the likely problem areas. And I think that's really useful. Another thing you can do is you can use the highlighting. So on this menu, which is an extra menu, which you'll see shortly, you can have a look at the low frequency words, and it shows you all the words that are likely to cause difficulties. And then you can get straight in and edit those words and decide perhaps they're not required, perhaps they're adjectives or something that's not required for your class, or perhaps you can simplify them. And so you can highlight it, simplify it. Again, all designed to save you some time. Then you might say, okay, I've done what I can, but I don't want to lose the richness of this language. So wouldn't it be great if I could just have a low frequency table? And it will literally make that low frequency table for you. And furthermore, you click on it, you can see that word in the dictionary, which is great for students at home. So again, saving you a bit more time. And finally, if you are in a school which requires rigorous planning, I think they would be impressed if they could see that you've considered every single word that might cause difficulties, its definition, synonym, images, and engram, things that are really going to help people. And this enables you to generate a sheet that will enable you to pre-teach any of these words. Very important in primary. Just to go through it quickly, here's the definition of battered. There's the synonyms, and I actually find synonyms are often good because some of the synonyms are things that students might know or children might know. And finally, often an image is worth 1,000 words, or at least in this case 20 or 30. And finally, an engram. Now the engram's a bit more for teachers to have a look and to see how popular a word is, but I still think it's a useful thing to see. Okay, so that's everything you need to teach a word. So,
Hey, James.
Yeah.
Just a quick. So I've put the link, that link
Perfect.
there, available to everyone in the comments.
Absolutely.
So I'm right in thinking that would allow everyone to get involved and have a look at everything you're showing.
Fantastic. So if you can all go to that link now, that would be perfect. And then I'll do a live demo so that we can see how this works in reality. Okay. So hopefully people are getting along. So I'm going to do this fairly slowly. Obviously, you will be able to rewind the tape a little bit if you need to. So there are many ways to get here. You can hit download, but I always find the open the beta one is the best way. So you come to my website and you open the beta. Hopefully everybody's clicked the link. We go through, we make a copy. And I always do this completely live, so you don't think there's any tricks going on. We don't speed this up. So Ben is obviously going to entertain us as we wait for the loading screen to go along. Okay.
there's a bit of pressure.
Yeah, there is pressure, but you know, what we have here is you can see Google Docs is loading live as we speak on my computer. Even though I'm a developer, I don't get any special privileges. So you can see the reading power tools has happened there. I'm just going to click on About Our GPT. Now remember, this is a beta, so we are going to need some permissions. So continue. Now, if this were Facebook, it would probably get straight into this and let you open things straight up. But actually, Google's a bit more careful and says this app isn't verified. Now, that's true. It's a beta. I'm verified it, but we're not doing anything sneaky here. So you do have to go to Advanced and then go to Difficulty Power Tools. If you're unsure in any way, you can always check the scripts, but I promise you it is perfectly safe. View and manage your Google Docs accounts. I can't actually create anything for you without this right. See, edit, create, and delete spreadsheets. I'm sure you want me to create that spreadsheet with all the layers. Display and run third-party web content. Those are little bits of web content to the side, in the sidebars. So that's the minimum permissions I need, and that's all I take. So I allow it, and here we go. Okay, so now we have quite a lot of tools. Now, this is the manual, which is here. It shows you how to install. It tells you about the reading tools and gives you a little bit more detail. Now, I'm happy enough to run a quick demo so you can see it. But all of the instructions are right here in the About the App. So don't worry, you can just delete this once you've installed it. And now you have a blank canvas so you can put anything you like. Now, here's what I prepared earlier in my Best Blue Peter speech. So let's pop this in here. Now, I think even at primary, I Have a Dream is one of the greatest speeches ever made. But when we have a look at it, you're going to be in for a bit of a surprise, I think. This actually unaided reading age of 14 to 16. Admittedly, there's a lot of beginner, but there's also quite a lot of difficult words. But this is an amazing speech. This is something we should be able to teach 8 to 10-year-olds. And what we're saying here is this is an unaided reading age. So we say to ourselves, well, let's have a look at this and see some of the challenging words. Well, one of the things we can do immediately is highlight those difficult words. And I don't think there's any harm in saying to the students, these are some of the difficult words that you might come across in this. And do you know what? This is something important. So I'm going to add a low frequency word table, and that's going to really help me go through it. And what we can do now is I've just made this far more usable, because what you can do now is you can instantly have a look at the definition. And you know what? I've probably saved you hours of pre-teaching here, because that signed up all the difficult words and helped you with that in that sense. But also this, you can choose to make notes. And if you're teaching specialist vocab, like a science lesson or something like a history lesson, you might want to put your own notes and your own definitions. And some of these difficult words might not be difficult if you've been teaching on that subject before. Now, that's one way to do it. But Ben, I bet you've got an observation coming up soon, haven't you?
Yeah. How did you know?
I know. And you know what? You know how they like to ask all sorts of crazy questions, don't they? They like to say, well, how did you prove, how did you choose this vocab? How did you make sure that vocab was really good? Now, normally, for my own purposes, I'd only use the low frequency words. But you know what? If I always run a full vocabulary analysis on all the lessons that I run, I mean, that's just the way it is, right?
Every time.
Now, this is quite a long way. It does take a minute or two to run this, because it's generating a whole spreadsheet. But this has made a brand new spreadsheet for you.
Am I right in understanding then that a number of teachers you've worked with are using this all the time?
Yeah, they are now. I mean, this was my lockdown project. But yeah, they are using this quite frequently. And it is going through quite a lot. But you can see how we now have every single word in there. We can see the frequency. We can check everything. And we can use synonyms, image. We use the NAM project for images. So instantly, in your planning for your word list, wouldn't it be nice to send that to the person and say, yes, I've analyzed all of the 467 words here. Would you like to have a discussion with those? That's going to look good on anybody's plan. But also, it's very useful, possibly more useful just looking for your own teaching purposes, just the low frequency words, because then you have a really good idea what words you might want to pre-teach. So if I do that again, but this time with just the low frequency words, you'll see the difference. Of course, it's a bit quicker because it's only pulling up the low frequency words. But again, you can see the words that are going to be tricky straight away. Things like Gentiles. And, you know, this is an incredible. Alabama, well, if you're an American child, chances are you would know that because it's one of the states. But there's plenty of words here that could be challenging. York, interesting why that one's in there. Okay, so all of these words are there for you to have a look at and check. And so by using these tools, you can put this to any document that you feel like. And I think that's the real power of this, is having a look. Now, there are some other little functions. One of the things that I think is useful is if you are very interested in the overall document, you can get some more stats. But I think it looks better when you look at this. Now, when you're teaching primary students, depending on your age, these three here become much more important. Upper intermediate, I would say, for the Americans, you're looking at students who are 10 to 12. And really, we want to be looking at words beginner, elementary, and intermediate. And for the much younger students, not only do you want to be getting nearly everything down to beginner and editing quite actively to get it there. So these words here are things, and this is live. Every time you run it, you make changes, you can simplify and simplify. But for something like this, I wouldn't want to mess with the vocabulary because this is a really important speech. But if I want to make a simple children's story, I went to an apps event seminar, and I learned how to save a lot of time. Now, if I do a summary, you'll see straight away the difficulty guide will change quite a lot. Now, that's shocking, but that's because there's quite a lot of difficult words here. As soon as I highlight it, And I say, again, I'm just showing you here. I went. Went's actually, I am going. Went's actually quite a tricky one. Probably apps is fine. Went to an apps event. What would we say? What would be an easy word for that? Ben?
Good question. I was going to go to event. Webinar's probably tricky as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I went to an event. Yes, I went to an event.
Session? Would session work better?
Maybe. That's a good point.
This is making me think, though. Making me think.
It is making, and that is the thing. So one of the things we can do is, you're saying, well, I'm not sure what word is going to be good. You know, what's going to be good. So one of the things we can do is pull up, session is upper intermediate, event, beginner. So I went to an event and I saw how to save a lot of time. So now we're looking at these and we're really analyzing it quite carefully. Now this should shoot it right down. And you can see we've put this as suitable for all readers because now it's beginner and elementary. Please note, suitable for all readers is exactly that. If your children can't read properly, then you really need to be using specialized books and vocab or on some kind of scheme. So that's really what we're looking at here. Have we got any questions in the chat at the moment? I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see what the audience have got to say. A lot.
There's a lot in there, yeah. So we had a question, when will this be out of beta? Not sure if our district will allow us to use it if it's in beta. So there's a keenness to get involved. I don't know if that's on your timeline.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is something I made myself. So when it's in beta, if the district is keen to pay for development costs, then I'm happy to. But at the moment, I would have to wait for Google. But we are hoping this academic year, maybe. I need to see how many bugs there are. But if the district is interested, then I'm happy to talk about getting it through there. And also, it is open source. So if your district is properly looking after your safety, then I'm happy to share the source, and I'm happy for them to discuss having their own bespoke version.
I had a not question here, but just a bit of thanks for sharing, and she really appreciates the showing of the tool, which is a great addition to your Google Docs. I mean, there's a number of use cases, and I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of them already. I mean, already I'm obviously thinking in terms of text that I'm giving to students.
Yes.
But I'm also thinking in terms of my own writing. And
actually, the opposite is true. If we're not talking about primary students, we're talking about wanting our students like in personal statements. Some of the teachers are saying, actually, we're putting into personal statements for the opposite. We want to see lots of rich vocabulary. And if it's not got it, that's a problem. And so it's quite interesting. Differentiated list, yes, it is. Spelling list. Yeah, we're definitely in primary now, aren't we? Yeah, and yeah, I mean, that's the great thing is you can put real use vocabulary and then that will generate the spelling list for you straight away. So you can pre-teach the words. Which base list are you using? Okay, good question. It is very loosely based on the Cambridge words, but it's based on the research I did about 10 years ago when I was an EAL teacher. But the list is right in there. So if you, hang on, I better share my screen again. Okay, yep. So if you look here, the actual word list is right here.
Let me bring up your screen. There we go. People can see it now.
So yeah, so the actual high frequency word list is right there. So you can see all of the words and you can search them. And if anybody has a strong interest, I can clean it up and share it as a spreadsheet as well. But it is slightly bespoke because as a computer, most dictionaries, what happens is they don't take into account the plurals and the past tenses and things like that. And that's one part of the word list I'm still working on. I think I've caught most things, but possibly not everything. And it is based on the European Union levels for words. So the upper intermediate, all of that is based in there. As I've got my 5 minutes, I just want to finish off my little presentation.
Yeah.
Which I will show the research because that led me nicely into that. So
yeah, your screen is back up.
okay, perfect. So yeah, this is research based. It is based on my EL research. I used to work for a university. This is the library in Cambridge where I did a little bit of the research, probably not most of it if I'm honest. And the Freya model is one model that I was aware of, and I wanted to make sure that you could very easily teach, because you've got all of those things that you want. So for example, in that batted, you have the definition, you have examples, you have characteristics, and you have non-examples from the sources that we've come up with. The reading ages, now I've used slightly more sophisticated reading ages. A lot of people just use that old 1950s one. I use the Coleman-Liao reading age because that's best for computer-based, because it doesn't require counting of spaces. But I also use a variation of Dale-Chaw readability. Now, the important thing about that is it's context aware, so it knows what words are being used, and that's really important. The Dale-Chaw often is higher in terms of its ranking, but I think it's more accurate. And please remember, a reading age, according to both of these, as a reading age is the age you would expect the average US child to read a piece of text without any help. So it is US-based research. For younger children, pay more attention to the vocabulary difficulty chart. Now, there is plenty of research which shows within a year or two, US and UK are roughly the same. I would also stress this currently only works for English. I don't have the language skills to generate the list for other languages. The Ngram comes from Google, and it's a useful guide to see how word use has changed over time. And it's particularly important if you're a non-native speaker. For example, in Malaysia, they still use the word photostat quite a lot, but actually that's really gone out of use. It's now being replaced by photocopy. So you can have a look at not only the use, but how it's gone up and down. But you need to be careful. Lots of people have read Harry Potter, but it gets the same weighting as an obscure electronics manual or statute. And so those weightings aren't perfect in any way, shape or form, but they do give you a nice little idea. Also, if you want the absolute stats, they're all there, the length, difficulty. So if you want to do other stats of any sort, you can see them right there. Also, because I don't think I've given you quite enough today, I've got a few other freebies that are really useful and kind of helps me with this. One of my favorites is Read Aloud extension, which is great add-on to Chrome, because that enables students to actually listen rather than have to read. And I think that's really important for primary children when they're at that stage of decoding, because even if it's a robot's voice, it's a voice that students can really understand. Print friendly is really good because it gets rid of all the rubbish and all of the adverts and puts it into a nice PDF, or you can print it if you're still in school. And again, very good for getting rid of distractions. And finally, this one's essential. If you're scanning things to try them in, if you right-click on any Google Doc that's an image, it will automatically do optical character recognition. Now, it's not perfect, but it definitely helps unless you are a super touch typist. So those are the things, and my 30 minutes, I believe, is just about up. So I won't push my luck, but I will got about 2 more minutes questions. Yep.
Yeah, so we've got, would you be able to change the list? Was one of the questions that came as a follow-up to about where
yes, the list can be changed, and this thing is
from.
fully open source. So I'm happy, once you get those Google scripts, you can change them if you want to. But if you have particular words that you think ought to be in the list, then it would be great if you shared it with everybody, because that's part of the reason it's still in beta, is I'm still working on those lists. But yes, you can directly change them because it is a Google script and you would have full access to the behind the scenes.
And in terms of reusing the tool and getting a chance to use that regularly, are people going to need to make a copy of that document every time?
Well, what I would say is you make one copy and you just copy and paste into that document. Once you finish with it, copy and paste it out.
So like your Google Doc has a repository for your writing,
yes, and then you just pop it in once you finish with it. Because the other thing is you probably don't want the history going around. And sometimes you might want to copy, the highlighting stays, the table stays. So depending if you want that or not for those particular students, then that's it. This is designed, you make one copy and you just copy and paste in and out of it. And as I say, this was a lockdown project, and I've leveraged a lot of the Google technologies to save me writing a huge amount myself. But even so, it is fully open source. And as I say, you can, if you've got any knowledge of Google Scripts, you can get straight in there. And I'm happy to show anybody, if they want to play with it, how to do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, James. I think your claim at the beginning of saving a lot of time was very much the case with that amazing tool. And Georgina makes a good point in terms of connecting with you
Yes.
for follow-on questions,
Yes.
as well as obviously subscribing to the channel and everything else as well.
Yeah.
So really appreciate you sharing. I hope everyone, if you've got any more questions, I'm sure James will be able to pick up a few from the comments.
Yeah, I will check through the comments. I'll be online for a little while. So if there's any comments in there, let me have a look, see what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing. Really appreciate it. And you're probably quite late in the day, so hopefully we won't keep you around for too much longer. Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, James.
Take care.
So, thank you. So just a little reminder for anyone that's joined that if you would like the opportunity to get a few free seats on a bootcamp or summit of various different descriptions, then there's a little form that you can fill in there to be entered into a draw to win those. And that's our gsummit.link/ACER and give you a chance to win some places. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to bring in Kristen. Hi, Kristen. Welcome to the summit. So, Kristen, I understand you're currently based in Hong Kong. That's right, isn't it?
Yes.
Cool. Though you've taught in a few different places, including the US and elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Brazil.
Yes, good. So I think a lot of that experience hopefully goes into what we're sharing today. It's really great to have you on. You're going to be talking about reimagining classroom routines using GSuite. Mm-hmm. And I think we've got a bit of forms and sheets coming in as well. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely a new start to the year. It made me rethink how I did things. And in fact, I like it better than the old paper pencil way. So doesn't matter what happens next. I'm going to keep going with it.
I love that. So what we've had with both yourself and James so far is a little bit of, I'm going to say thinking time, but I don't think the current situation is providing thinking time, but definitely a nudge to do things slightly differently.
Yeah, it's that motivation piece, right? Something pushed you outside your comfort to try something new. And so that's where these two things kind of came from.
Yeah, it's definitely been a version of an innovation incubator, though not in a way that anyone would deliberately sort of put in place. Cool. In which case then, I'll pass over to you. If you've got any slides you want to share, I can put those up for you as well.
All right.
But yeah, I'm going to pass over and let you start talking about your session.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share. You should be seeing my screen here. And so the link there, you can type in. I'm not really going to follow through this, but it's a great, like, you can look back through it later and get a review of what I talked about and the direct links to these different documents I'm going to show you. But really, it's just, these are things I'm doing in my classroom that have helped me rethink the life of, currently I'm in the classroom, but we never know if something is going to happen and we're going to have to go back online. And some of these things that we do all the time that are part of the routines, that just trying to make it so that it could stay, whether we're online or we're in person or whatever happens next. So really simple, very elementary school type things, but they, just to give you an idea of the types of things you can rethink using, especially forms and sheets together, is kind of my goal. So this is what the whole thing looks like. We're not going to go through it, but get the link for yourself so you have it for later and you can go back through and have a look. So the first thing that I kind of rethought at the beginning of this year was my reading log. Now, obviously in the past, it's been a lot of paper, pencil, kids writing it down. And then what happens? When they're at home, it's hard for me to see it. I can't check in easily and see who's reading, who's not, how long they're reading for. So I really just threw together a very simple form, start them thinking about things like the types of books they're reading, how long they're reading for, how many pages, and then of course the name of the book. But the secret to this comes in when you export that forms data into a sheet. So when you take it into a sheet, it ends up looking like this disaster of who's what, where, when, reading days, how. And then with just one formula, you can take it and have Google automatically sort that for you based on the student. So you can see down here at the bottom, I just have, this is real data from my students, but changed with all fake names and information, so to protect privacy. But if I click student A, then it's just showing me student A's information. And it's literally, I put one formula here, and it automatically fills everything else. So you saw I just deleted that one cell and it deleted everything else. And this automatically updates whenever they insert a new submission to the form. So it pulls the email, and then it just automatically looks from this whole big log, and it pulls this information and just recharts it here for them to look at on just their screen. And then it does the same thing for student B, student C, student D. And it's a really great way for me to keep track. Okay, obviously, student A, not reading so often, not reading a lot. Student B, I can see very quickly, seems to only be reading realistic fiction. So I can go in and I can say, I want to talk to this child about how to do this. Student C, looking a little bit more balanced, but again, more on the informational side. And student D seems to be attempting to read all the books constantly, which is great, and test out different things. So it's a really easy formula to do. And then of course, I just built in the graphs, so it was easier for myself and my students to see. And when I say it's really easy, I mean it is super easy. So let's take a look. We're just going to create a whole new one really quickly together. And very basic questions. Now, depending on the age of your kids, obviously add more questions, add less. I teach 3rd grade, which is why I have things like genre, number of pages, amount of time you read for. If we're imagining we're teaching a really young age, maybe you have them use the Likert scale, or you can still give it multiple choice, but give them emoji options, which they get a thumbs up. Hey. Thank you. And they get a thumbs down. And then that can just be my reading log. And this could be something for, you know, 1st graders, tracking what they've read, whether they liked it or not, 1 thumb up, 1 thumb down. And then I go ahead and I send them the form. Every kid gets the same form. And then what I need to do on my end is I go to the response tab and I click the create spreadsheet. And I can give it a name. Something that hopefully I will remember. And it will automatically create that spreadsheet, and it links the form to the spreadsheet so that anytime somebody puts something in, it starts populating here. So let's get a little bit of data. And I'm going to pretend to be student A. Ooh, I can spell. And I did not like the book, so it gets a thumbs down. Great, and then I can take it again. I'm still student A. This time I read more books, and I liked more books. Then I can come back here and I can see student A's data is starting to get filled in. When I come down, I create a new tab down at the bottom. I'm going to make a cell somewhere that has the student's email. And then I might give headers to help them know what's happening. And then I'm just going to put in my formula. So it's a filter formula. I'm going to filter this sheet. I'm going to make it an easier thing to type because I'm going to have to type it a few times. So answers. And I want it to tell me columns C and D because that's where the good information is coming from. So C to D, and it nicely highlights it for me so I know it will automatically pull this. And that's what it will report on the other page. And then I only want it to pull that if column B here So again, it's on Answers tab, column B. Now we get it highlighted in purple, is equal to A1. So if I come back to sheet 2, A1 is where that email is. So we can see I have books and more books here, and then I can go ahead and I can complete it again. It's a thumbs up. And it automatically pulls that in and it shows up on this sheet for student A. Now let's see student B started completing their log as well. I don't know why that's the title of my book, but thumbs are weird. They thought it was a great book. I can come back to that sheet, and for student A, it's still only showing those 3 things that student A submitted. I would create a second tab for student B, student D, student E, all the way through, and the only thing that changes is this email right here. So once you have this first student set up, you can just come down here, duplicate it, change the email, and now it's only pulling the data from student B. And you can do that over and over and over again for every single student. If you want to throw in a graph, throw in a graph. And then of course, this data is for your students so they can use it as well. And then you want to share it with them. Now, depending on the age of your students determines how you're going to share it with them. Some kids can handle seeing everybody's data out there. Some kids, they need it to just be theirs and it's theirs alone. And I know a lot of people know this trick for slides, but on Sheets, you can publish it to the web as well. So if I come down here and publish to the web, I publish the entire document, but then I can come through and I can take just sheet 2 and copy this link and post it for just that student on Classroom, so just that child can see it. So if I come here and put this up into my browser, you see it's just, here's the sheet of all the data that has been put in so far. This is just student A's. There's nothing I can click down here. I can't see anybody else's results. And I can do the same thing if I come back and I change this to copy of sheet 2, which was where I put student B. And if I paste up at the top, now I can just see student B's. So I can publish it to the web and then just copy that link and share it once with each kid and put it somewhere that it's easy for them to find and continue to come back to over and over and over again. And they will never be able to lose their reading log again. It will always be linked to them in Classroom, hopefully right there near the top, and something they can keep going back to. They can see how they're rating their books, what types of books they're reading, any graphs you create for them. And this is why I think it's better for me to create it than them. Obviously, the older kids could probably create the sheet for themselves, but if I create it, then I can just look through here quickly down at the bottom and see all of the students in a row, whereas if they create it, I have to click into each of their individual documents. So I'm just gonna pause for a minute here.
Hey. I think, well, just a lot of love for, I mean, first of all, a nod from James saying that going for the live demo, he sort of respects everyone who does that, which I can also go for as well. So I think Ida just really keen to get using it by the looks of it. So some great stuff. Also loving your use of emojis.
Love emojis.
I know a number of people now starting to use those in their Google Classroom topics and obviously in forms as well. Do you use an extension for your emojis, or what's your tool of choice?
I have a Mac, so the shortcut on a Mac is Control-Command-Space. So no anything else, just Control-Command-Space on any keyboard, and it pops up that emoji list, and I just pull from there. And you can search it, you can make it bigger, you can get all the math tools. So yeah, anytime I want one, I don't have to go hunting. It's right there on my keyboard.
I've gone for the emoji keyboard Chrome extension. That's where I get mine from. So it follows me around.
Yeah.
Cool. So there was also Stephanie jumped in. She's already plotting the use of what you've shown for a parent night comments.
Oh yeah, we did something very similar when we were still online. We created different like a master spreadsheet, and then it filtered through to different kids, and the parents only had access to their child's, but I controlled it all just from my one spreadsheet. So I mean, there's infinite uses for this. It's just, this is what I use every single day. My kids fill out that, well, some of them fill it out 3 times a day, but they read every day, they fill out the form. So there's lots of great data that I can see, and they like watching the graphs grow.
And I think as well, related to our topic of obviously hybrid distance and combinations of learning that we're having to deal with at the moment, that how do I support the children in what they're doing? How do I know how they're progressing? And I think that's something that so many teachers are grappling for at the moment. Just the little challenge of, I don't see their faces all the time when they walk in now. How do I know how they're getting on? So it's another example of just that teacher empathy for wanting to be on top of things, but using the technology to do that really effectively.
Absolutely. And so like, it's so easy for me. I literally touch nothing unless a kid comes up to me and says, excuse me, Miss Struble, I accidentally put this in 3 times. Can you go in and delete the extra? And then I go, sure. And I delete it, but that's it. Like, they have full control over it. They can see everything. They have all of their data, and it just automatically updates, and they can see it. And it doesn't update immediately on their published to the web version. I think it might take up to 5 minutes, but it's still like, you get all of this data that you can easily look at, that they can easily look at. And then the other thing I do with it is we do weekly reflections on it to get them thinking about their reading. And so it's, give me photos, give me things you think you did well, set a goal. Give me some reflections on your favorite characters and questions, and things that match the skills we were learning in class, and just giving them what you read matters. And there is a purpose for these books being read and for you sharing them. And I've seen a lot of more insightful responses coming out of this since we started it at the beginning of the year. Not gonna lie, week 1, there was a lot of, I read. It was good. And now I can add more pages and get a little bit more in-depth responses from them.
That's absolutely amazing. And I think there's going to be some requests for that template slide that you are showing now as well.
It's linked. It's here. Well, there's the formula in case you need it again, but it's linked here. So if you just click, this will open, and it's a template that you can use. And it's all locked in. So like, most of this they can't click and do anything with unless it's like type here or delete this and put a photo here. The rest is all back in the master. So it's very kid friendly when you make that copy and share it with them.
Yeah, I think everyone's, if they haven't learned that yet, then you learn that the hard way when you start sharing.
Yeah.
Cool. I think, there's a huge amount of excitement about the new shortcut everyone's discovered for their Mac. So that's gone down a real tree amongst a lot of people.
Love a good emoji shortcut.
Yeah. And it's always the situation with a summit session that sometimes it's the one little thing you threw in by accident that everyone walks out of the room kind of buzzing with.
At least you left with something, right?
Cool. So we've got about sort of 10 minutes left, I think.
Yeah. So I do have one more set of forms and sheets that I can show you the combination of, since we do have time.
Cool. I'll keep the questions coming.
Please do. Yeah. So the other one I wanted to show you, again, I use this one every day. Every morning my kids come in and they do a daily check-in. Right now they have it as a QR code on their desk. So they come in, they sit down, they scan it. When we were online, I just linked it to them every single day so they could take it and they could tell me how they were feeling, what's happening in their life. So, I love my emojis. So we've got, I'm feeling one of these emotions. Here's how sleep was, how breakfast was, anything in general you want to tell me. And then they share it with me. And of course I can go in and I can look at this data and I can see the big long list again. Big long list, especially once you start doing it every single day for months at a time. I do enjoy reading. Student C every so often tells me how her fish are doing, which is always entertaining. So I'll kind of give this a big glance overview. Is there anything popping up in this? Is there anything you want to tell me category that stands out as a kid I need to check in with? But then again, I use filters to auto sort it by student. So again, I can kind of see some of those trends of how they're going. And it also helps me with attendance. So like on October 9th, these two friends did not complete the survey. Either they were late to school or they weren't there. And so I know there's something that on that day, they might later not know, and I need to come back and revisit and be like, oh yeah, you weren't there that day. Here, let me help you out with that. But I can also sit there and I can look like this friend comes in every morning. He's really tired. And so that's normal for him. But if he came in one day and was all of a sudden green, I'd be like, hey, what cool thing has happened today? What's positive going on right now? And then same thing, like this morning, student E came in, he's been green for weeks and all of a sudden he's having a red day. So I had to chat with him, what's going on? Tell me what's frustrating you today. Just as like a quick emotional check-in with my kids so I can make that connection. And I was able to find sneaky ways to do it when we were online as well. You know, oh wait, just everybody else leave. I have a quick question for you. I didn't understand something. And then you have that one kid left behind and you can just do that really quick check-in with them. And again, it's just, this filter is a little bit more complicated as a formula because you have to pair it between the timestamp ranges. So it's only one per day. But again, it automatically pulls it by their email address and then looks up, here's the date for today. So anything posted after 1 minute after midnight on the 27th. And then it looks and says anything posted before 11:59. So it catches anything in between these two dates, which means that it just populates right here. So it pulls all of this data for me and sorts it by date so that I can see those trends over time. And I'm just choosing, I want to see their overall, tell me how you're feeling this morning. I could change this. I could ask a question. Do you want a private meeting with me? And yes or no. And I can just see anytime somebody says yes, we set that up. So it could have a lot of different uses as far as a check-in system goes. And it's just, this is one of those things that's always open on my computer every morning. Kids come in, they fill it out. I kind of read through their results as they come in. So I get a chance to know what they are, but I'm not having to like get super close to everyone in person, which we're not allowed to do. And I'm not having to like, last year they had to pick up Velcro things and like physically move them around the board, and they were all shoved together in one part of the room trying to tell me how they were feeling. So it's a good quick check for them that I can then also look over really quickly and see, here are the kids I need to check in with at some point today just to see how they're going, what I can do. Or, hey, there's something cool happening because you're really happy this morning. How can I help you with that? So again, it's that, how can you make that connection and have it be something that is here when we're together in person, and if we go back online. These are both things that will continue in both places and in fact existed in both places because we were online and now we're in person. So again, this formula is a little bit more complicated because of the dates. It's here with some description of what the different letters and numbers mean. But if you use the form I've linked for you and the sample spreadsheet, you can just copy and paste it and it'll be everything in the right place as long as what you want is the red, blue, green. Questions about this one?
I think, again, sort of more just, I think, obviously the master slides, everyone's really, really loving those. And then Kim, who's up next, is sort of really complimentary about the filtering. And I think what you've done there is pulling out that overview has been really appreciated. And Tim just sort of flags that discrete way that actually you've happened upon a discrete way of students sort of sharing that check-in process.
Yeah, it's great, especially, you know, you always have those kids that are shy and don't really want to talk, but they might want to tell you something. Like my fish friend, she can tell me all about her fish and I read about it, and occasionally I might leave her a note that's just like, how are your fish doing? And it doesn't have to be a conversation. It can just be a very like, here's a sticky note, it's on her desk in the morning. But yeah, it's a really great, I don't have to interact with them if they don't want me to, but I still know how they're doing.
Yeah, I remember some of my colleagues, when there's a quiet child in the class, sometimes the feedback they tend to get is to be less quiet. And I always thought in my own classroom, no, if they're like, there are enough children that you know are saying stuff, and actually, if you can find a way to connect with those children in a way that's comfortable for them, that they can share what they're going on, then that's really nice. So that sounds like a use of technology that's going to go way beyond COVID time and into something that you're sort of embed into your practice anyway.
Yeah, again, it will be used again next year, whatever the classroom looks like, because it is better for me, it's better for them, and I get more out of it than I did last year. I mean, they were moving the things around and I could see it, but then I had to like look at it. I had to figure out, okay, that number is that child. What do this is just so much easier, and it just is all in one place. I can see it.
I think what both yourself and James have showed is that use of technology, but to just free up you to do what you want to do as a classroom teacher. You want to spend time listening to and supporting the children, and that's what it's allowing you to do. So it's a really nice, impactful use of technology, and I think Ida's kind of summed it up as well. She really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's weird because I'm like, fill out this form to tell me how you're feeling, but I feel so much more connected to them through that distance of technology because they feel more comfortable to share.
Yeah. It's and we're finding this a lot with the people, the schools that we're talking to, is that there's stuff that they're doing because of the situation, and then there's things they're discovering that are actually just complementing the pedagogy they want to have in place. So I think you're going to have a lot of people copying.
It's that forced use of technology, right? That something made me get outside my comfort zone, made me get away from papers and pencils, and this is how we've always done it. This is how the people before me had always done it, or previous schools, or whatever it was, and try something different. That goes away.
Yeah, I think everyone hopefully is opening up to that idea that this is, if ever there was a time, then it's now that you can try something a little bit different and just pursue that interest.
Yeah.
Cool. And John just also flagging that the way you've on the slides that you shared, the way you've set those descriptions is really, really useful. I think that's there's a teacher sharing the use of a sheet formula. Of just spelling it all out.
It's one thing for me to give you 2 specific examples of how you can use it, but I would love to see it used more, because there are so many different things you can do with the filter, and tied to emails, especially now that everybody has one, that can just make it a so much more powerful tool. But if it's just copy and paste, when are you going to figure out how you can do it and make it work for yourself?
And actually, maybe that's one for everyone everyone watching. Your most impactful sheet formula, please. I mean, I've always been a big concatenate fan, but if error is a lovely one for making everything look tidy and organized. Yeah,
I threw the if error in there for that one because otherwise I'd be looking at NA for the next 3 months, and that drives me crazy. I'd rather see a 0 than all the NAs. But I go back and forth between VLOOKUP and filter as to which I use more.
Okay, we'll take people's suggestions as we go through. So you have a little bit of a, hey, you know how they do those kind of competitions between different things on Twitter sometimes, like this versus this? I think we should do that for Sheets formula. Awesome. Well, maybe I'm getting a little bit carried away there.
Ambitious is the word.
Thank you for rephrasing that. Thank you so much for sharing. Really appreciate it. Obviously, the time is getting on in your part of the world. So really appreciate you sharing with everyone. And I think everyone's got a lot to take away from that. Obviously, if there's a few comments we've missed, feel free to jump in on them.
Will do.
Awesome. So thank you to Kristen. I will thank you for your time and sort of send you backstage for a little bit. Next up, we've got Kim. But just before we do that, I just wanted to link back into something Dan was saying earlier. Talked about a couple of the different ranges from Acer. And actually, just before we jump into Kim, thanks to Asa, we've just got a little video that we can share with you. There we go. So Dan mentioned it earlier, a few of the different additions coming to ASA. That ratio, the 3:2 ratio, I don't know if anyone's got a Chromebook like mine where you put it tablet mode and it feels a little bit long and thin. So that's kind of addressing that for that teacher feedback around being able to use it in the way they want. Cool. So thank you so much to James and Kristen. And next up, Kim. Oh, just going to unmute you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, I am great. And look.
There it is.
I'm not using it for this today, but it is sitting right next to me.
Oh, you lost it just at the end there.
Yeah.
Cool. So thank you for joining us. You are currently in your school. I'm right, just outside of Munich is correct, isn't it?
Exactly. I'm in Bavaria at the Bavarian International School, and I am the primary school ed tech person. And I also work a little bit with middle school, but I've been here in this role for quite a while. And it is a sunny fall day here in Bavaria.
Lovely. And I know that there are other escapades you could be getting onto there, but you're going to focus on collaborating with Jamboard. I often find actually, like, of the core GSuite tools, Jamboard is the one where I get the most looks of like, oh, I've never heard of that from people. But I feel like that's changing through lockdown and into hybrid learning.
Exactly.
So yeah, what are you going to talk a little bit about the use of that for collaborating, brainstorming, sharing ideas, right?
Absolutely. I'm going to talk about it is one of those lesser known tools. But I'm going to talk about that as well as some ways you can use it certainly for distance learning and some of the new features that Meet allows with a connection to Jamboard. So we're going to have a look at all of those things. I have a little presentation to share and walk through some features, and then I'll do a live demo of a couple of those things as well. So awesome. If I share my screen then.
Yeah, I'll let you take over.
Am I up?
I am not seeing your screen to put up yet.
There we go.
There we go. Cool. Yep.
Alrighty.
You are on. It's all yours.
Okay. So Jamboard. Jamboard is a Google app. You can also use it as an actual app. So you can find it in your Waffle. As a choice, or you can use it, works fantastically on a Chromebook where you've got the ability to write on the screen, or on an iPad as well. So giving you the ability to write on the screen gives you a few extra features. So that's where I've highlighted on this slide, app versus desktop. I'll just go in full screen so there's more viewing here. So the things that are highlighted are the things you get in the advantages when you're using it as an app, either on iOS or on a Chromebook or elsewhere. There's some Drive integration. It has some handwriting recognition. There's some fun ways to, it will auto draw. So if you draw a bad cat, it will actually turn it into a little cat. Stickers, sticky notes, multiple slides. It's always collaborative. Which makes it really, really powerful, especially for distance learning. So we're going to go through a few examples of how that works best and some ideas. Let's get jamming. Jamboards, each Jamboard is called a jam. So that's the words that they use. I always let kids have a play before you need them to use it. It's especially with primary kids. I can imagine even with middle school kids, giving them time to play with it and get familiar with the features means that your lesson's going to go a whole lot better if you're asking them to use it. And they've had a go at all of the fun stuff that it can do. Top tip as well, making a template ahead of time. I'm going to show you an example of that. Making a template that you can use and then just distribute that out to the kids. Saves you a whole bunch of time, and you've got it ready to go. You can even do it on the fly through Google Classroom. Or you can assign Jamboards to small groups. They can collaborate together on a small one and then bring it back together again. And designating slides or frames is what they're called in Jamboard, but we think of it like a slide for each student. So I have a couple of examples of what that looks like. When you use items from your Google Drive, so if you're using the app version of this, it pulls them in a small little view like this, and you can expand those and pull out pieces of it. So you can see in the little GIF there on this side what it's doing. You can expand it and pull out pieces of it onto the slide and then move those around. So whether it's a PDF or a slide deck or something from your Drive, you can pull out pieces of it to refer to or annotate. Let's say it's a text that you need students to annotate. So here there's questions. They can annotate those right on screen. Problem solving, it has a gridded background if you want it. So you can choose what background you want. There's a few choices. It's simple and it intends to be simple. So when you've used something like Explain Everything, which I love, it's a really, really powerful tool. And it has sometimes almost too much for doing something quickly and simply. So that's why I love Jamboard, because it can be really, really quick. It's not giving you thousands of choices to choose from. It's just very, very straightforward and useful even with younger kids as well. So choosing that grid or graphing background can be helpful if you're doing any kind of math. When you're using the app version, you've got a shape recognition as well. So you can pull in things and you draw a bad circle and it will turn it into a nice looking circle. Using images as backgrounds. And this is where if you create a frame for each student, then they can solve the problem. So you can see here, you've got the name of the child up in the top corner, the problem pre-prepared. And if you just duplicate that and change the name, then you've got yourself a little template ready to go for each student, and they can show their working out on here. Alternately, you could just throw the problem up on the board. And if you've got your templates with each name on it, then the kids can go straight to their frame, get started working, and use the problem from up on the board. I just did that with a grade 8 class last week. The teacher's been looking for all sorts of ways to do some quick check-ins at the end of her lesson, kind of an exit ticket. And I suggested this to her, and it worked so, so well. We just prepared the template ahead of time. All it had on there was the child's name up in the top corner. We pushed it out through Classroom, and every kid got on. She even said the problem out loud. The kids wrote it down, and within 5 minutes, we were done with that. And after the lesson, I sat down with her. We looked through the frames, and she could see immediately she didn't need to teach that again next week. Everybody got it. So within 10 minutes, she had this perfect little piece of assessment data for herself, and she could use that to direct her teaching for the next lesson. Quick, easy, and effective. Using it for things like sketchnoting, mind maps, note-taking. This is just used as a background image then. So the Venn diagram up there, and then you could either pre-populate with some little notes on the side that they need to drag in, or the kids create their own and put those on there. This is just super simple comparing two characters, but it could be whatever you wanted it to be. I have a high school teacher right now who's actually using it for a lot of their sort of mind mapping after a lesson, putting the pieces all together. So the kids are really, really enjoying it. Graffiti walls or mood boards, sort of infographics. There's stickers. You can import pictures straight in the app or in the program with the notes. Combining all of those things together, you can put videos in, all sorts of things. So it can kind of become a little bit like a Padlet in a way and a Pinterest board in a way without having to use those two other tools. So just a great way to collect up a bunch of ideas and connect them together. And that, again, could be collaborative, or it could be individual students doing that for themselves and then sharing it to you through Google Classroom as the teacher. You can also set up some, like I was saying, some templates. So when you have things like this prepared, if each student knows their number, that's just one frame, and they can type on their little sticky note their discussion board for that particular question that you're asking, right? Just makes it super quick. Sharing it out. So once you're finished, if you've prepared something that you want to push to the kids, you can do it easily through Google Classroom. When you're finished with it, if you want to look at it in another way, it can be downloaded as a PDF or as JPEGs. It's easy to share it with students as well on the fly. If you're not using Google Classroom, or if you're not prepared to do that, you can immediately share it if you want to. There's a share button, as in all Google apps. Recently, Meet over the summer had a bunch of updates, and one of them is they've now included a Jamboard in Google Meet. So instead of, you can prepare it ahead of time if you want, or you can do one immediately on the fly. So right there, there's me with mask on. Right there, 3 dots, you're in your Google Meet, open a Jam. So with right there in your meeting, Jamboard opens, and it sends all of the participants a link so that they're all on a collaborative whiteboard immediately. So you know those times when you really just need kids to get on and do something, write something, solve a problem, especially for math. I could see a lot of immediate uses for that. Everybody's on there and solving those problems. And you can have one that's prepared ahead of time. So the next question it asks you after this is, do you want to start one fresh, or do you want to use one you already have? So it's already giving you the immediate link to be able to send out something you've pre-prepared, or just do it on the fly. All right, so I'll give that link to my presentation at the end. But right now, I'm going to do a live demo of some of those features just to show you a little bit more of that in action. I'm going to do it on an iPad. So I'm hoping this is going to work for me. Let me just get this connected. All right. Are you seeing?
I was coming in to chat you through the setup bit, but I think you're in, aren't you?
I'm in. Is it working?
Yeah, I can see your
Okay.
iPad screen now, I think.
Perfect. All right. There we go. It's a little bit of a delay. Okay. Are you seeing Jamboard, Ben?
Certainly, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So right here, and again, this is the app version. So there's a few things. It is a little more restricted when you're using the non-app, but so I'm showing it to you as an app. So there's these assistive drawing tools down at the bottom. You've obviously got colors, pens, the usual that you would expect. This is your text recognition. So it'll turn that into text. And I know somebody's going to ask in the chat, does it deal with foreign languages? And I'm not quite sure. Ben, do you know the answer to that?
Don't believe so, but I'm just going to do a bit of checking now.
Okay. I bet it would deal with it. I don't know how it would deal with the characters. I'm not sure.
I'm just going to jump on my.
I haven't tested that one.
My Acer Spin 11. I'm going to open up the Jamboard app and have a look.
Got your shape. So again, like I said, you can draw your really bad circle and it will give it to you as an actual circle. And this one, the kids go nuts for this, but it's a really cool way to do quick infographics or mind mapping. Or if you're into sketchnoting, for instance, it's a cool way to do that when you really can't draw that well. So now I'm going to change my color so you can see it. You can see along the bottom, it starts giving me a whole bunch of choices for a house. So I can choose that, and these can get bigger or smaller, and I can move them around on the screen, right? So you can see right away how it'd be quick and easy to do a mind map or sketch noting and include some of those visuals that help pull things together. And so those are all of the assistive drawing tools that you then have access to. Additionally, this one's kind of helpful if you've got something pre-prepared and you're demonstrating, or you've just written something down and you want to show something on the screen. It's a laser pointer, so it circles it for a minute or uses it for a second, and then it will go away, which is very helpful for demonstrating with. Those are all the options that you would have as an app. The lights in my room are on a timer, so they just went out. So I'm sitting a little bit in the dark. They've got the sticky notes, which you've seen, and a variety of colors for those. And again, you can move them around on the screen, make them bigger and smaller. You can pull in images. So it does a Google search. Again, I like anything where the kids don't have to leave that environment and get on Google and start image searching. So I like anything where they're straight in the app, they're not leaving this environment and getting themselves totally distracted. All right, and there we go. And there it is. And again, I can move that around. I can make them bigger and smaller. I can pull in stuff from Google Drive like I was explaining. So if you've got a PDF, for instance, I had one ready to go, and of course it's not there right now. This is a slide deck. So let's make this a little bit smaller. So you can see when I double tapped on that, all of the slides opened up. And I can pull one slide straight out here, and then I can make that bigger. So this is a map of a bike trip the kids were going to take. And then this will get smaller again on the side. So you can pull out certain things that you might need students to work with. Like I was showing earlier with an article, you could pull that out and have kids annotate that right on the screen. And obviously you can take a picture, and then there's just a few little stickers. So it's not super pic collage overwhelming. It's just a few little choices that they have access to with the sticker library. So that, for instance, was pulled out from the other PDF. There's just an example of a mind map using some drawings, my own drawing and sticky notes and different things that kids could work on together. Math, that was the one that we demonstrated earlier. And the nice thing, the teacher, after we'd done that lesson last week, she just went in and with a different colored pen, she just wrote some notes right on the slides for each kid, and they got those back. So she could immediately mark that as well and give them some quick feedback. Timelines, super easy to do because you can pull in the images and make quick drawings. And again, this is just an example with a PDF. So when you open the PDF, you get pages there that you can pull out from it. So that is how I've been using Jamboard and recommending it to teachers. I'm going to come out of this presentation here. And stop mirroring, hold on. Some people were asking what I was using for the mirroring. I will use Reflector, which is a really inexpensive way to mirror onto the MacBook. Are there any questions, Ben?
Hello. Not so many questions, just a few sort of bits of advocacy for Jamboard. So yeah, sort of supporting that Georgina's saying she's loving jamming with the Jamboard, looking to see how we can use auto draw inside a jam. So some ideas for auto draw. There's one interesting one we kind of talked about in a previous event, because through auto draw, if you draw a house, you know, your kind of standard 5, 6, 7-year-old drawing a house.
Square one. Yes, the one like I drew.
Exactly. Yeah, it's got doors, it's got 2 windows, it's got a pointy roof. If you draw that in Jamboard, auto draw will give you a selection of different dwellings, like flats or a kind of straw hut, And I like that's where I've seen it being interesting, where if everyone draws a house, but you could have so many different houses come out of that. And like just the discussion in itself about where might that house be? Where would a house like that be in the world? You know, sort of where would you expect to see it? Because you've got one that looks like, you know, a sort of standard block of condos in New York through to a hut that you might expect to discover in sort of a rainforest. It's quite exciting.
So what I put up just now is just an example of what that template is. It is dead easy to make. Post a note or text just up in the top corner, one per student. What I have found is that it's limited to 20 frames. And I don't know if you're able to add more. I have not figured that out yet. But if you've got a class that's larger than 20, that's where this little template idea could get a little bit tricky. So some of the kids were absent, but the teacher was able to just comment on the side. And then she's got this template ready to go for the next time. So she's making a copy of that and pushing that out to the kids. No work involved. They're always ready to go, sitting there in your Google Drive, ready to push out to the students anytime you want to use that kind of an activity.
Yeah, you may have mentioned this, but you obviously have that as an assignment where it makes copies in Google Classroom. So it gives you the option to have that as your template rather than docs or slides necessarily.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's also a bit of love for it coming to Meet as well, which seems like quite an obvious integration.
Yes, amazing. And I've had so many teachers back in the spring before this was integrated where either they had little mini whiteboards because they maybe didn't have an iPad or they didn't have another way to do this. So I had one teacher in science who went out and bought 20 whiteboards and she had them all pre-prepped and she was holding them up and writing on them and adding things. So this is a magical event for her that she can now just go, oh, Jamboard, boom, and she's ready to go, especially if she pre-preps it ahead of time and doesn't use the on-the-fly version. She puts one up that she's already prepared.
I think that's the thing, is what we're seeing is there's lots of teachers with lots of ideas for how they can adapt to this situation, but sometimes without the full awareness of what's possible with the technology. So they're using what they know. And I think that's one of the things we found, getting access to that information. Teachers we wouldn't normally have engaged with who are sort of asking questions about how might I do that, do this. So it's definitely sort of changing the classroom over the course of this year more rapidly than we might have expected.
Exactly. And I think that's what both people were saying, that it all put all of us in a situation where people were starting to use things that they had never used before, and good on Meet for actually responding to all of those things, because that's where you put an app really to the test, is when you put it in the hands of educators and they start going, hey, wait, why can't it do that? It should be able to do this, right? And so good on Google for responding to all of those requests and really listening to teachers. They do really listen.
Yeah, I think the Meet engineers have probably not slept for for a significant period of time.
I know.
As they upgraded it. And yeah, there's a lot of new bits there. Obviously, some through freely available, like Jamboard through GSuite for Education, and a few higher usage tools like the polls, the Q&A, and the breakout rooms, which is and the enterprise option. So yeah, they're definitely adapted to it.
Yep. And if you're not a Chromebook school, or if your kids don't have access to tablets, I have one other thing that we've also tried, which is just a little Wacom graphic tablet. So any way that you can get kids to have the ability to write, right? That's when that tool becomes a little more powerful, because as we know, doing it with your trackpad can be a little bit difficult. So we have a few math classes that have these available to just plug in on the fly if the kids only have a laptop and not a Chromebook or a tablet of some kind.
It's how I started my instructional videos. So I think it was like back in 2011 on a graphics tablet. It works great.
Yeah.
Have they been relatively affordable in terms of a solution?
Yes. Well, it's a lot less expensive than getting additional tablets, because it's really just doing one thing, right? So if you have a set available that a math department can share, if that's a day when they're going to be needing something like that, there's ways to do it more economically.
Cool.
So yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for sharing. I noticed a few people sort of talking about some of the, like when you have more people in a Jamboard, or when you use it for an extended period of time. I think with anything, like, you know, with a Google Doc with a table and names in down the left, and equally, like you said, with that template for Jamboard, just giving people a kind of place to go and do their Post-it notes and do their sharing can help to sort of manage that.
I think too, once students get used to it, as long as they know, oh, this is what's happening. The first couple times, it's always, especially with primary kids, it's always a bit of mayhem, and they're silly and they do silly things. But the more they get used to it, they stop being so silly. And you can also send it out individually, and then put them together. So if you're really struggling with a class that's particularly misbehaved with the Jamboard, you can send them out individually and then look at them. And it's just not as convenient as that one-stop shop where they're all in one spot, or in small groups as well. Easy to distribute through Google Classroom, where you've just differentiated it out. So certain kids get certain things.
Oh, Kim had a quick question. He was asking, what's the model now?
This one is an older one, and I don't even know, but I can find out for you, and I will put it in the chat. These are the smaller ones that they have. I think this one's about 5 years old. So there's a much nicer model of those now that works even a little bit better than this one does. But I'm happy to put this model in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks.
Cool. I'll let you sort of move around your room and get your lights back on. And just always a pleasure to be working with you. Thank you so much for your time, Kim. And yeah, any more questions on Jamboard for Kim or myself or anyone else, just pop them in the comments and we'll give it a best shot at answering them. Cheers, Kim.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so we have got 2 more sessions left. Just a little mention about one of our other sponsors, AE Learning Lab. So we are in the position to offer ISTE certification, and that's also online now. Kim is actually one of our ISTE certified trainers. So if you're looking to develop your sort of all-round use of technology in the classroom, then the ISTE standards are a great guide for that. And you can now get the certification through some online sessions and the follow-up portfolio. So just head to aelearninglab.com if you want to find out more about that particular certification. Okay, so I'm now going to bring in Katie. Hi, Katie, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
No, not too bad at all. So Katie, you're currently in Barcelona, is that right?
That's right. Yep, I am full-time based here.
So not too far away from my own time zone this time, unlike Kristen and James. And I believe you're going to be sharing a little bit about Google Slides and Peardeck. I know this is a tool that has really come into its own during sort of hybrid and distance learning, but something that a lot of people have been using for a long time for some really engaging learning opportunities anyway. Just in terms of your own use of it, what kind of grade levels have you used it with in the past, and sort of, a little intro to Peardeck.
Absolutely. So I've been using Peardeck for years, and I've been using it in person. And what I love about it, if you don't know, Peardeck is a tool that basically takes your presentations, Google Slides or PowerPoint, and adds some interactive and engagement with the slides. And so as a tech specialist coming into classrooms, I worked with a lot of different students, and I didn't necessarily know the routines that their teachers had or what their familiarity is with different apps. And so Peardeck let me organize my lessons and organize formative assessments and quizzes and interactivity within one thing where I could come in and they didn't have to leave out of that environment, as other presenters have said. So I've used this with grades 3 through 10, and all age groups love it. They all get super excited about it. And I know that Peardeck will look at a couple different examples that they've been doing a lot of work on the K through 2 range as well, and making it really accessible to students of all ages. Yeah,
I know a lot of people who sort of ask me about, can Google Slides do this? Can Google Slides do that? That my reference points tend to be, well, actually, Peardeck, and also we've got Nearpod. Rachel's talking about Nearpod afterwards, which is which is similar, are the ones that I'm always like, well, if you want that functionality, then actually you should have a look. And actually, without further ado, let's have a look. I'll bring your screen in. Okay, so we can see that now, and I'll pass over to you. You can talk about Peardeck and Google Slides.
All right, I will do that. So we're going to look at Peardeck, and I'll show a little bit about how to use it if you're new to Peardeck. But really, we're going to look at a lot of different examples of how I've used it in my classroom, how you might use it in yours, and a look from the student side so you can kind of see how powerful it is. So as I said, it's an interactive digital lesson tool. So it's going to take a presentation or a digital lesson and allow you to engage with students and let them engage with the slides on their own individual devices. And they do that by responding to questions, writing open-ended responses, drawing on the slide, kind of like Jamboard, seeing other students' answers and responses. They can access embedded websites even into the slides and manipulate different objects with some draggable slides. And as I said, I've been using it for years and it was always really powerful, but the really incredible part came when they integrated with Google Slides. And so I started using Peardeck even more regularly when I was doing digital citizenship lessons with my classes, and I was using the Common Sense Media slides. And so Common Sense Media, if you've used their curriculum, they've made a turnover to Google Slides as well. So I was able to just take slides that already existed, and the Peardeck integration made it so easy to add in the interactive elements on slides that I already had and presentations that I had. So for example, this is a slide from the Common Sense Media digital citizenship curriculum. And so it's incredible slides with all the content that's really well made. And I was able just to pull them in and use that as my base for Peardeck. So taking the workload for me as a teacher down, where I can use pre-made resources. I love to use what I can and then adapt it and use the Peardeck features. So again, here's another example. So with the Google Slides integration, as you can see, we're in a Google Slides environment. So this is the slides, the presentation that I've already prepared. And to add in the Peardeck elements, you're just going to use the add-on, which integrates right in Slides. So up here, I'll show you how to do that. Up here in add-ons, if you don't have it, you would get the add-on and you'll find Peardeck and it will show up in the marketplace and you can add that on. I do. So I'm going to go to Peardeck for Google Slides add-on and open the Peardeck add-on, and it's going to work, and then pop up as a little sidebar here on the right. And this is my Peardeck options. So right from here, even if all you wanted to do was present this as a Peardeck and have these slides directly on each individual student's tablet or Chromebook or whatever device they have, you could do that. And you could do that just by starting lesson here. So this is the one key, and we'll look at this more in a minute, but you want to present from Peardeck instead of the Google Slides presentation. And there's some reasons why, even if you did no interactivity, it would still be beneficial to have these slides directly on student devices. And we can see what that will look like. But we're not going to do that because the real power of Peardeck is the interactive elements. So there's several ways that you can add these kinds of questions and add the interactivity that we'll look at. And the first is just taking the slides that already exist in your Google slide presentation and adding in some overlays of questions. So right here to your right, you can see the Ask Students a Question options. And these are the different types of questions that you can add to your slides. So a free form text, a multiple choice, numbers, an embedded website, a drawing slide, and a draggable slide. And the drawing and the draggable slides are premium features. So there is a free version and a premium version, as with many of these apps. But there's still ways that you can use the drawing and the draggable slides, even if you're not, if you haven't upgraded to the premium, and we'll look at that. So we're going to look at this one. So this is an example from the Common Sense Media, and this is an activity that would have been on a worksheet, or maybe I would put the picture up on a slide and have students write a caption for this image on a piece of paper. And instead, what I'm going to do is add the text, and I'm just going to click once. You just have to click once, And it's going to bring up a preview of what this would look like on the student screen. So you can see the text response preview will show you what the student device would look like and what the teacher device is going to look like, so that you can be sure that this is the type of question that you want. I'm going to update the slide, and it's going to work, and it's going to add this directly to the slide that I have. So the little pair has showed up on the bottom left. We have students write your responses. That's how we know this is now an interactive slide that students can work with. And so now they're going to be able to write this caption directly in the presentation. And what's brilliant about the Google Slides element of this is that this is still just a slide, right? So this is still just a slide that I can manipulate, that I can add whatever I want to. And just like I would with any Google Slides. So for this type of question, write a caption for this image. A free text response is what I want. Students can write in their own sentence and capture it. Then I'm going to take this next pre-made slide, again, from the Common Sense Media curriculum, and I have 3 learning objectives for the lesson. Well, maybe I want my students to think about it a little more, and maybe I want to get some information from them. So I might make this a multiple choice slide by clicking on the choice button. Okay, and you can see the preview of what that's going to look like. And then I can give my options. So maybe I just want to put in those 3 objectives right here, and I can add another answer, or make these, or take away one if I want just to. Update the slide. And now maybe this time I would ask my students, what objective are you most curious about, in this lesson? What are you hoping to learn more about? And I have a way for students to get more involved. Okay, so this is how we can take any one of our slides that already exist and add in the interactive questions and elements just with the click of one button here on the right. But the real power of Peardeck as well is the templates. So they have done a lot of work of pulling together beautifully made template slides that are completely customizable, that you can pull in and add to your lessons to add in those interactive and engaging questions with really minimal work on your part. So we're going to look at that here. So up here on the right, you see our template library, where you can explore and add pre-made content to your lesson. And if we click on that, you see that they have lesson builders. So they've pulled slides that are organized by when in the lesson you might use them. So bell ringers and do nows, assessments, activities, and transitions during the lesson, and then end of lesson reflections and exit tickets. So we'll just look at the beginning of the lesson to see what that looks like. And you can see lots of different text slides, drawing slides, draggable slides, and different things you might try. So let's try this one. So to add in this slide, we're just going to click it once, and it's going to work, and then pop it right into your slides presentation wherever you're at. And so now we know we have our pair, which shows us that this is an interactive slide. And again, even with a template that Peardeck has, this is it's just a Google slide. So it's something, all the elements on it are pictures that I can take away. I can change this to just one thing if I only want them to talk about one thing that they already know about today's topic. Okay, maybe I want to get a little more specific than today's topic and talk about cells, and I want them to draw or type one thing they already know about cells. Okay, so now that we have a few interactive questions, let's look at this from the student side and what this actually will look like as a Peardeck. Okay, so we're going to start the lesson here with the at the right-hand side, the green Start Lesson button. And now there's 2 ways that you can do this. So we will look at this when we're actually in the Peardeck, but you can do this as a student-paced activity or an instructor-paced activity. So when I was doing this in live lessons, the instructor-paced activity is usually what I did, and it helped me gather my students' attention and guide them through the lesson. But you can always change this later, so you can toggle back and forth. So even in a live lesson, I might start as a teacher-paced activity and then turn it into a student-paced mode, and students can go back and look at different slides or work back through different material, and then I can bring them all back together with the instructor-paced. If you're doing this in a hybrid way or even virtual, but all your students are together at once, you can maybe start with instructor-paced activity and then let them work through some of the material on their own and bring it back. Or if it's asynchronous and students are just at home, you can let it be student-paced and they will go through the lesson on their own. But for today, we're going to go to an instructor-paced activity. Okay, so it's going to take my slide presentation and it's going to give me the place to launch it. And there's two ways that students can enter it. So if your students have Google accounts already and they're logged into a Chromebook or logged into a device or logged into Chrome, they will log in with their accounts, and they'll do that with these codes. Which, this is just a side note, my students love the funny mnemonic devices that they have. So we have a letter code, but it tells us quick yards, quietly, bother, broke grapes, and they always get a kick out of that. So if your students have accounts, this is the student side, what it looks like. They're just going to type in QYQBBG, and they'll come in. And you see that we're waiting for students as the teacher side, initializing Peardeck, and I can see on the teacher side when my students connect. So I have one student connected. Another way that you can do this is to give the students a link, and you can push this out through Classroom or post it to Seesaw or whatever it is that you might do. But you also have the choice that if your students don't have Google accounts, you no longer have to have a Microsoft or Google account to log in, which is a huge benefit for primary students that may not have accounts, or it might be very difficult. So this is an incognito window where I don't have a student logged in to an account, and I'm just going to paste the link from this presentation, and it's going to let me join the presentation without an account, and it'll give me a little animal avatar. Right? So I'm a rabbit for this session. So two options. So it can work both ways, and you can turn that on or off in your settings in Peardeck. This is another feature that you can choose to use or not, but it will start your students off with just a how are you feeling today, and see how they're doing. So they can say that, or they can skip it, and you can kind of get that information. So a quick check on your students to see how they're doing today. And what they have now on the student side of things is the slides. So when I'm ready, so this is, and if you are interested as home participants in joining, you can. So you can go to joinpd.com. This is how your students will log in and enter this code. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the class. So when you're ready, you can start the class. And one of my favorite things is that it keeps the code up here on the right-hand side. So our students that are a little late getting started, the code's up there so that they can always see that. Okay? So I'm going to try to show you on the screen the teacher side and the student side, so you can get a sense of what this looks like for both. Okay? So I'm going to say, oh, maybe the student isn't feeling so hot today. So we can see. So this is the student view, and as the teacher, when I slide through, okay, you see that my students' slides, they come along with me. And so just the benefit of honestly having the screen, the screens that they're looking at have the slides that you can move through is really beneficial. They can see pictures a little clearer and a lot of different things. On the teacher side, you can see all the slides in a thumbnail, so you can jump ahead as needed. So let's look at some of the questions that we set up, some of our interactive questions, and see what that looks like. So on the teacher side, I have the question and the activities that I put, and on my student screen, if the window is big enough, you can see it'll show up right next to it, or if it's a little smaller, down here, answer question. So my students can then type in whatever their response may be. Let's give it a caption. Okay. And as the teacher, I can do a couple different things to see responses, and that is either show responses right here on the screen for everyone to see. So if I'm projecting this on a projector or in a Google Meet, if I'm sharing my screen, I can show responses and we can see. Oh, looks like I have some people have joined in, which is excellent. So I can see the responses that are coming in live, but they're anonymous, right? So the students don't see who has posted, but I, as the teacher, can see that in another screen that we'll look at. Good. So we have some nice thoughts here: together but not communicating, teenagers alone together. We can hide these responses or we can show them. And one of my very favorite features, which maybe it will be one of yours too, is that when we're ready, when they're done, I can lock screens, which means that they have run out of time and I can control whether my students are still typing or changing their answer. So for any of our perfectionists who just want to get in a few more words, I can control that. Okay, you also have this awesome feature. If you right click, you have a timer. So you can count down time to locking screens, which is super awesome. Okay. So I can lock my screens. When I move on to the next one, it will move on to the next question and unlock their screens again. Okay, so for this one, this is our multiple choice. And so our multiple choice screen is here. And so students get to choose which learning objective they're most curious about. Maybe it's number 1. And I can see responses as they come in. And so we can kind of see a breakdown of who's choosing what and the multiple choice questions. Okay, good. So the next slide that I have in here is another type of interactive slide. So this is a drawing slide and it's super powerful. It has a lot of different applications, and we'll look at some examples here in just a couple minutes. But you can see on the drawing side, students have access to a highlighter, a pencil, lines. They also have a text box, so it's not just drawing. We'll say, what do I know about cells? Honestly, not much. I was an English teacher. Okay, when I'm done, I can put in text. I can also draw and interact with both of those mediums, which is super useful. There's an erase button, a clear button, an undo button. So students can have fun doing that. So when I'm looking at drawing responses, not sure if anybody else is drawing, you can see what your students are drawing live. So what they're adding, either one by one. I love the grid layout. So you can kind of keep an eye on what all of your students are doing at once. So almost like the Apple, the iPad classroom tool, where you can sort of see the screens and what students are doing, or you can look at overlays, which we'll see why that might be useful, and see things as they're coming in. So I'm going to lock our drawing screens so we're ready and hide these responses. And then the next type that we have is a fascinating look at embedding web pages. So this is a website that I have embedded. It's a Padlet. So this is a Padlet that I created already. And it brings in, so some websites are able to be embedded and they work right within the Peardeck itself. So this is a Padlet that I created, a parking lot with questions, and it brings it right into the environment with my students on their screen in the presentation, and they can actually interact with that website right here, which is just another incredible tool, especially for our younger students, but middle school and high school as well, to keep them involved and not having to go off and then bring them back into lots of different apps. Okay, then the last one that we will look at is some draggable slides here in just a second. Okay, any questions about how these things work? Just before we do examples, yes.
No, I don't think any questions about like how it's working. There's a few moments of like, I didn't realize there was a drawing feature. So some nice moments of like, oh, yeah.
Good. And I know, 30 minutes isn't a ton of time, so I cannot, show you everything there is. There's so much, but maybe get your minds going and you'll go onto YouTube and find some tutorials to how to figure all this out.
Well,
and so
I was going to say beyond trying or thinking about it, I just gone ahead and created a few slides, and is pretty excited. So I think she's gone and sort of acted on your inspiration, and off she goes.
Excellent, awesome! I love that. The best thing is just to try it and see how it might work. Great. So let's look at a few different ideas and examples of how I've used them and how you might. So I'm going to move back into my Google Slides to show you, but another great feature here in the teacher running of this presentation is now I can turn on student paste. Okay, so I'm going to turn on student paste mode, which means that you, as if you are if you're a participant in the slideshow in this Peardeck, you can go back and forth and move through the presentation. So you can go back and look at what we had. You can look at the different examples while I'm not guiding it anymore. Okay, so back to our slides. The other, just a side note, really great thing about having the Google Slides and the Peardeck integration is that now my slides are it's still a Google Slide. So if you're in a situation where you want to use the material, but you can't use a Peardeck, or you don't have a one-to-one environment or whatever it might be, you can still present and have these as slides. It doesn't change anything there, which is awesome. Okay, so a few different examples of things that we might how we might use it. Okay, so static slides. Why might you use a static slide? One way that I use this is for watching a video. So if I'm going to watch a quick clip, I might have my students wanting to think about a few different questions as we're going through, and having those, I guess I will show you here, having that here as I watch, or as I show the video. Okay, as I show the video on the board, these questions are still here on my student screen. So these are still here for my students to look at so they can reference them while we're watching a clip. So that's one way that I like to use a static slide. The template library has a ton of really great things. They have some getting students moving. So like we might have a stretch break. We have 3 minutes to stretch. And then if I stop student paste, what I can do, oh, I lost my timer, but so I guess you can't, so we might time it or put on a stopwatch and let students go through that. Okay. Instructions. So an instruction slide for this activity, this is a template from the Peardeck library. So you can just type in the instructions. So you might put the instructions up, and then again, the students have them. So even if they're on the board at the front of the room, or even if you have them in front of them, kind of on your shared screen, something about having it in their hands that they can look at on their own device just seems to make all the difference somehow for some of our students, things that they can reference with them. Okay, so the drawing slides, a few different ways that I use them for highlighting text, drawing responses, labeling things, circling, drawing lines to match. So for example, this is a template in the Peardeck library. So highlighting the subject in yellow and the verb in blue. So I might highlight, not necessarily students having to draw something from scratch, but as a way to highlight different parts or circle different parts of speech in a sentence, whatever it might be. So this is an example that I've used for a little older students where I ask them to read a paragraph and then underline or highlight examples from that text. Some great elements. So this is an example of looking how the drawing slide can really give your students a lot of control about what they're doing. So one question, plan your perfect day, thinking about media use and what their day would look like. And 3 totally different ways that they could respond to that, right? So they could draw a picture, or they could use emojis if they're using the cool extensions we just learned about for using emojis, or they can type, or they can do a combination of the both. So it adds in a lot of accessibility for students to come in and respond in whatever way that they can, and whichever way they prefer and are more comfortable. Okay, drawing or typing to label a diagram. So this is what I want to show you in Google Slides. So this is a template that already exists in the Peardeck library. But again, because it's a Google slide, it's completely customizable. So this is now a draw slide, but I can delete this picture and put in my own. I can delete anything on this page and add in whatever I want. So I can insert a different image. So I looked for a fish. So maybe I want to diagram a fish. and insert that or whatever it might be. So these slides the templates are incredible and they're completely customizable. So you can use them as a base and then do whatever you want very, very quickly, which is super handy. Okay. Some other examples, the templates that they have, making a mind map as we looked at. And so students can draw or add boxes like kind of like in Jamboard, and they can add in that information right there on the slide. There are some graphing elements, so you could have students draw in and graph as well. Maybe they're going to circle something, so you can add in images and they can circle. So the drawing apps are not necessarily just having to draw a picture from scratch. There's a lot of ways that they can interact with your slide and with pictures and other things that you're putting in. Okay, so text slides. This might be the one we have the most ideas for open-ended responses and brainstorming. But one thing that I really loved in doing a presentation for English language learners is when we're doing something like a think, pair, share. We want to have our students think and share with one another, but how awesome is it to have a chance as someone to think and then type, and as a teacher, I have access to all the responses of my students. And when it's time, sorry, as I flip through, so I can jot down my ideas and my brainstorming here. And when it's time then on the next slide to talk with my partner, I have some notes that I can look at, and I'm not completely in having to think of things off the cuff, and there's some things to refer to and some time. And then of course, as the teacher, I have that data. So yes, I think there's a question here about the drawing features only for premium. There is, but the great benefit of that is that if you use the templates that are a drawing slide, you can then add in your own pictures and you can customize those. So you can still use some of the drawing features in that way, which is super beneficial. All right, there's lots of different ideas. So the draggable slides is one that we haven't looked at yet. And this is a great cool feature where our students have a dot and they can drag that to somewhere on the screen. So I use this to have students answer questions, especially ones they can be all yes or no. They can be somewhere in the middle. And it's very fun when you see student responses. You can see an overlay of where everybody is. So it's a way for students to think about where everybody else in the class is. A way that is super, so you can see this, we could see multiple dots from, there we go, several students and where they are, which is fun. An interesting way maybe to do a check where students are so they can move their dot when they're finished. And then an interesting idea is to use this for four corners, right? So for these times when we used to have students go to different corners of the room to agree, disagree, they can drag their dots, and we have a virtual way of doing that. Okay. The last couple of things that I want to share with you is the web compatibility. So this is a really interesting tool that you can put in the websites right into the Peardeck, and not all sites are compatible, but even if they're not, you can put in the link to the site, and then that's the place where students can click on that link and send it. So if you're in a Peardeck already, not having to go into another environment, they can just click and go straight from there. But this is from Peardeck's website, and these are all the places that they're already talking about that embed and that are compatible that they're working with. And I'm sure there are a ton more and a ton more to come. And then multiple choice slides. This one probably needs the least amount of examples, that we're really used to using quizzing and multiple choice quizzing. But the formative assessment of being able to quickly embed it right into your lesson is just a really powerful way to get student information, to get feedback, and to get a lot of information about your students. So then the last thing that Peardeck offers is a lot of critical thinking and check-ins and social and emotional learning templates that are here that you can use to check in with your students and get that information that's really valuable for them. So there, again, is so much more so much more that there is to talk about, but hopefully these are just some ideas that you can use to get you really excited about Peardeck and think about ways that you can bring some interactivity in an easy way to your classes. So I think that I will leave it there.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, no, I think in the time you covered lots of really useful information. But I know that feeling of like, but I could have mentioned this and I could have mentioned that.
There is.
There was one quick question that Ida had in relation to the slide that had the video on.
Yeah.
She said that she needs to go out to YouTube to watch that. Is that always the case, or can it be watched within? Should it be watched within the slides?
So I think when most of the time you're going to go out, I actually think I've learned from, maybe it was Kim in a previous session, that there is an extension that will make those work within. So a Chrome extension, that's an additional tool that can make those embed and work within the Google Slides, but I'm not 100% sure of what that is. So yeah, I think if you click it, it will take students out to YouTube to watch it.
Okay, we'll see if we can drag up any information on the alternatives.
Yes, I'll take a look in the next session.
Cool. And just one final question. Where do we find the students' answers? So I don't know if you're able to just recap that quickly.
Yes, so there is a whole nother thing that I have not even got to mention, which is the teacher dashboard. So you can look in that. So here in these little 3 dots is the teacher dashboard. And I believe the teacher dashboard itself is a premium feature. I have to double check on that. Certainly some elements of it are, but in the dashboard, this is one place where you can see student information. So seeing in responses, a little slow at the moment.
It's inevitable whenever you need it to go quickly.
Always is. Okay, so I can see clicking on the responses. We're waiting. Okay. And so I can see the roster of my students. And somewhere here, of course, and again, as I'm trying to find it, I'm struggling to find it. Usually there's a place where we can see, there we go. So in the list, so the reason is because this is an overlay. So this shows where all the dots are together. If we go to the list layout, you see each student's individual responses. Okay. So if you have, this is the downside to using the students without logging into Google is that you just have their avatar to see their responses. One of the tricks that I have for that is maybe the first question on a slide, have them type in their name or make a little name tag, and you can connect the dots with who they are. But there are even more powerful features in the dashboard that you can use if you want to add on that extra superpower to Peardeck.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie, for sharing. Really, really useful.
Absolutely.
And I know that people are going to sort of start running with that already if they haven't done so. And I know it's a tool that's really helping a lot of teachers out through the varied forms of learning that they're having to grapple with at the moment. So really, really timely and useful.
Great.
Cool. So thanks again for your time. Have a great rest of the day. And I'll just drop you again backstage. And if there's any comments that I've missed, feel free to jump in and give a reply.
Will do. Thanks so much. This was fun.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we have one more session to go, and I'm just going to bring in Rachel. Hey, Rachel.
Hi, everyone.
So welcome. I know you've done a few sessions on the summits before, and obviously we've done a lot of work together. Though you've been very, 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 very busy with all the primary schools in your trust that you're working with, adapting to, challenging time.
Very challenging.
So, this is half term for you, right?
It is, yes. So 1 week for the half term. So time to refresh before autumn 2 comes in.
And what better way to do that than doing some live stream sessions as well?
Always happy to help other teachers.
Cool. So, yeah, obviously sort of people may notice that Rachel's accent gives away that she's not always been a resident in the UK, originally from Australia. Now, you're going to talk about Nearpod, I believe.
Yeah.
So quite interesting having Peardeck and Nearpod sort of in concurrent sessions for a bit of comparison, because they're tools that I think are similar in their functionality. So I'll have a look at that. And is it something that you've been using across the trust, or is it something you used in your previous roles?
Yeah, so it's something that we rolled out in our trust, and it's something that our teachers have heavily used during distance learning. So prior to sort of going in, it was one that we quickly jumped on for that need of having student engagement, especially during distance learning, and then coming back into the classroom where we still had children that were at home, unable to come into school. So having that option for them to be able to continue to interact with that learning content is still really important. And I think it's worth sort of mentioning on the back of Peardeck is that it currently isn't GDPR compliant in Europe and UK. So for anyone that's on the webinar that is in the UK or in Europe, and with GDPR, it's not one that we can actually use at this stage. So hence Nearpod, and hopefully I'll be able to show some of that off today.
Awesome. Right. In which case then I will switch over my slides to yours and let you sort of jump into Nearpod, if that's all right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Over to you. Right. Yep. We can see a Nearpod. I'll jump out and let you get on with it.
Okay, brilliant. So with Nearpod, it is worth saying that there is a slides add-on, and I will jump into sort of my slides just very quickly. So hopefully that will come up. So if any of you want to get a copy of these slides, I won't go through this completely, but it is just to have it there so that you can obviously refer back to what I go through in that content. So if someone wants to pop that link into the chat, that would be great. So as Ben mentioned already, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm just at TechMissC, and I'll be taking you through Nearpod. I'll show you how you can create your own Nearpod lesson directly within Nearpod, and then just showcase again that student perspective. And then also just how you can convert your existing teaching resources using the Slides and Nearpod add-on. So for us, why we started using Nearpod was very much to have that ability to continue to teach, but also get that immediate assessment data so that teachers can change their teaching on the fly. So be able to adapt it to meet the needs of the children in the classroom, and also to have that connection and collaborative features as well that easily are embedded directly within Nearpod. So I am going to jump into Nearpod now and just go through how you actually set up for a lesson. And I decided today that I was going to go with Egypt. It's one that is very common to be taught across the UK. So to go into Nearpod, and I should mention as well that I am showcasing the premium features. Within my slides, I have put a graphic in that shows the features that differ between them. So just in case you're sort of wondering as I go through. So to create a Nearpod directly within, you just click on create and then go up to lessons. And then you'll see here that anything that you want to drag and drop. So if you've already got PowerPoint files, if you've got Google Slides, if you've got images, PDFs, you can just drag and drop them directly in. But I'm just going to go through and start to set up the slide content. So I'm just going to quickly name this first to get started, and then go in and add a slide. So you'll notice that when I start to add that content in, that there is a range of content available that I can use. And there's also activities in here as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is just simply add a initial slide, and I can go in and select a theme, and I'm just going to give this the name Egypt, and I'm going to add in a image. And again, what's nice about this is that whenever you are adding content in, it is always going to give you that usable copyright-free images, which is always really important when we are teaching our pupils as well. Oh, it hasn't liked that one. Let's try again. This is always a typical way when you're delivering a presentation. You always select the one that's not quite usable. There we go. That's perfect. So once that's in, you'll see on the side here, I can zoom in or out if I want to, and I am just going to save that one. And that will then just apply that theme for any questions that I go in to use. So one of the great things about Nearpod is it's also got virtual reality trips that are built in directly. So again, I can just simply search, and we're going to go to Egypt. I'll just give it a second to come through. And I'm going to take you all into the Giza pyramids here, and I can just tap on done. So that'll then add that field trip option in. The other thing that's really cool is that there is 3D content as well. So you can see in here that there is a range of 3D content that can be easily added in. And you can also go in directly into things like the Aztecs. If you're doing anything on ancient Greece, again, this is some of those common things that come up. I'm going to go in with that Sphinx and just tap on done. Now, I'm not going to show you. You can obviously preview it as you're going through, but I'm going to save that for that student view that I jump into. And again, I won't obviously go through every single feature, but there is a lot that's added in. One of the other great things is being able to just add that open-ended question to find out what it is that children know. And I always start to use one of these initially to drive forward how my rest of the lesson's going to go, how much extra teacher input I need to provide, or maybe I can draw that back and then move them on to a further area. So what do you know about Egypt? And again, I can add a timer. So I can say, I'm actually going to be quite harsh here and just say we've got 30 seconds because I'm under the cap anyway. And I can also add a media prompt as well. So I could add an image in, I could add a video, I could add some audio in as well. And I can also give my students the ability to record their responses as well. So this is a great way to make your lesson content more accessible as well, as we know that sometimes students will find it much harder to just simply type their answer out, so they can record it as well. Once that's then added in, again, I am just continuing to sort of showcase some of these different features. If you've never seen Google Arts and Culture, they actually came up and created something all about hieroglyphics, and it uses the AI to code and turn normal language into that hieroglyphic. So it's a great one to share with your students if you've never explored. And there's also heaps of other fantastic arts and culture that I can't go into right now, but again, something that I'd recommend going away and having a look at. So what I'm going to do is just embed this content directly in. So I can just tap on that web content option and simply paste that in. And it gives me that option to test the link to check that it works. And then I just need to tap save. Once that's then added in, something else that can be quite helpful to be able to do is to go into the activities section. And again, what's nice about this is you'll notice that there is Flipgrid. For any of the teachers that are on here that haven't used Flipgrid before, it's fantastic for being able to empower pupil voice and to actually get their input directly in as well. So I've got a Flipgrid that's just set up as a quick Nearpod exit ticket in going back onto that field trip that we set up. So all I need to do is to use the share code, and I can just come back in here and then just simply paste that in there for them to be able to access as well. Once it's then done, I can then just press on add. Oh, and I need to add in. There we go. And I'm just going to add in that topic URL at the top here. So again, I know I'm not showcasing Flipgrid right now, but it's just to say that that does then add in that content so people can then respond, creating a quick little video response as well. And one of the great ones that we always love to use is the ability to draw over the top. So it's that draw it task. Again, what's nice about this is you can provide the instruction. So it might be as simple as write your name in hieroglyphics. And again, I could set a timer. I could also add in a background image. So if I wanted children, say, for example, in a literacy lesson where I wanted them to go through and mark up the adjectives, nouns, adverbials, they could go through and do that as well. It could be a maths piece where I might want them to annotate and showcase their problem-solving skills, so I can do that as well. For this one, I'm just going to leave it as blank and then go in to save it. And one of the last ones that I am going to add in here, I am just conscious of time, is to go in and add a collaborate board. In a similar way to Jamboard, where you could go through and use those sticky notes directly in. What's nice about this is it's a great way to get children to share their ideas, their thoughts, what they've learned. So I am just going to go in with and I can change this as well. So if I wanted to change that sort of layout, I can go through and do that as well. And you'll notice that you can also add in images as well. And it is live for them to be able to go in and collaborate. But also on a teacher side, you can actually go through and approve those posts as they come in. So you don't have to sort of just have that, are they just going to simply pop in their own answers and thoughts as well. Another one that's really nice to be able to go through and use is something like a fill in the blanks. So if you're doing, say, an English lesson and you wanted to give them a passage of text and then you wanted to sort of take out some words and then get them to drag and drop them in, this is a great one to be able to do that as well. And one that we often go in to use is the matching pairs. And again, you can just give them the instructions. And I can go in and add a pair. So this one might be pyramids. And then I can search for an image to use. And then again, I can just simply go in again, and we can go in with Sphinx. I hope I've written that correctly. And again, and I can keep going, adding those pairs in, and then all that then requires the children to go through and do is to match the correct image with the correct word. And again, I can set up a quick timer. So I'm going to go in 15 seconds and then save it. So at this point, my lesson's then ready to go. So I can go through and preview this. So rather than just going straight in, I can preview it first. Otherwise, I just simply use save and exit. And then in a few seconds' time, that will be then ready to go. You do have that ability to either use live participation. Now, this is what we tend to use in the classroom, or if we're going, say, for example, doing a live hybrid lesson, then we might use this option if we know that our children are going to be on at that same time. If not, then we can use that student-paced view as well. So I am going to go in with live participation. And you'll see here that it does then come up with that join code. Now, it's very easy to then link this out to Google Classroom. But so if you are using that, you can go through and do it. Otherwise, the other option, of course, is just to simply go in and copy the link and share it that way as well. So what I'm actually going to do is I am going to bring in a student tab here so that you can see both the student and the teacher perspective at the same time. And you'll see there, once they're in, they need to enter in their name. So I'm just going to go in there and press on Join Lesson. Now, as a teacher, what I will see down the bottom here is how many people have joined. So if you've just got on, that code is always in that top left corner of the screen there. So feel free to jump on if you're watching at home. And it's always great. And again, one of the great things about Nearpod is it does have that built-in immersive reader that we do see within Microsoft. So for those of you that are familiar with using Microsoft, you may know that immersive reader as well. This is the great functionality that's built into Nearpod. So again, as a teacher, you have control to sort of move through that content there. Now, I'm going to enlarge that student view now so you can see that VR content, so virtual reality content. You can see in here that I can zoom in. I'm just simply pinching. I'm using my Acer Chromebook, so it's really easy to be able to pinch and zoom in and move around, and great to also be able to capture that student's thoughts as they go through as well. So I'm just going to jump back here and go through. And again, we're now into that 3D model of the Sphinx. So again, I can quickly zoom in, like so. And I just simply use a touch screen to be able to move around on the device. And we can notice that there are some hieroglyphs on the Sphinx. So any experts might be able to sort of work out why that is or what that's for. And again, just being able to go through that content here. So it is a quick question prompt. And you can see here it will sort of trigger to use that microphone. And as a teacher, all I need to do for any activity is just make sure I press start first. And one of the great things about the teacher dashboard that's within Nearpod is that I can hide student names. So at the moment, you can all see who's in there, but I can just go through and hide them. So if I'm in a classroom and I want to be able to have those up on the board, it's always really helpful to be able to do that. And again, something that I only actually learned very recently was that in the top right corner of the teacher view, there is the ability to switch to the student view as well. So I can switch and show what the screen looks like as a student as well. So I don't have to always have that same screen up for the teacher. I can actually have that view on as a student. And the key thing I just need to note is whenever I have an activity, especially if it's on that live pace mode, that I go through and work. And again, I can share any answers as well. So someone here doesn't understand it, so I might share that to, it could be, a really great idea about something that they know, so I can go through and use that as well. Again, here you can see that it brings up that web content there to be able to go on and explore. So a lot of the web content will just simply open up into a new web page, but just that really great functionality of being able to just embed it directly in as well. And again, what you'll notice now is that Flipgrid that comes through. So we'll just let me just refresh because it hasn't come through yet. Okay, I was not sure why my student view hasn't come through yet. So what would then happen is that Nearpod response will then appear and they can actually then go directly in and record their Flipgrid response. Now, I am conscious of time, so I am just going to move on and then just show you very quickly that draw screen. So what's nice about the draw screen within Flipgrid, within Nearpod, is that I can always go in and hide that question. As I mentioned, you do have that immersive reader, so you can bring that up and have that read aloud.
Write your name in hieroglyphics.
Like so. At the bottom here, we can go through and use the various tools. So I can go through and start to draw my name, for example. You can also see that there's a highlighter. I can go in and add text as well. So if I wanted to just simply type, I can go through and do that as well. I can also go in and add in an image. So if I wanted to just do a quick Google search. So I might use this to help prompt me exactly what I need to write out my name. So I got the eye and the bird, but I can't remember the rest of it. So it's a helpful way to be able to do that. And then you can just hit submit on your answers. And you can see here that I can see as students are working on their drawings as well. And again, just going into that collaborate board. So you can see here that post can be approved. So a teacher always has that ability. If they want to control the media that's coming through, it's a great way to talk about digital citizenship and thinking about what we post before it appears live to anyone else as well. So it's a great way to be able to go through and do that. And then just that last one is the matching pairs option. And again, in here, you can see there just that student view, so that ability to obviously go through and match them. So if you're doing things like definitions, if you're in, say, for example, a French or a Spanish teacher, then you may use that to match the words and the different phrases as well. So it's a really helpful way to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump back into Nearpod now, and I'm just going to show you how I'd use it with an existing lesson that I already have. So right here, I've got a slide deck, and you'll notice that there's one activity already in here. So this was just a matching pairs activity, but the rest of my content doesn't have anything set up. So I don't have any ways to quickly find out what everyone in my class think about a topic, what they understand already. So using that Nearpod functionality is a great way to actually check in and see what it is that my students understand prior to going in. So being able to bring in that meaningful and quick assessment data is really helpful. So just within a normal slide deck, I go up to add-ons and I can come down into Nearpod and then open Nearpod up. This will then bring up a side panel on the side, which has all of those different types that I just showed you before. So you can always go through and use any of these directly within. So for this one, I might simply start with a open-ended question to find out what it is that they know about a 4-figure grid reference. So and again, I can set up that timer and I can enable those student audio recordings. I always like to make sure that's on so that it's more accessible to all of my learners in the classroom. And you'll see there that that then just adds in that additional slide there as the open-ended question for them to respond to. Now, with this one here, I might go in. So on this one here, we were looking at 4 grid references and then talk about being able to plot a specific point. So I'm going to jump back up to this one in here and we can see that we've got that flag on the map. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to delete that for a second and I'm going to convert this slide to a draw it. So what's nice about this is that I can easily add in that draw it slide so that students can go through, they can mark it up, they can highlight content. So if I'm giving them an English passage, if I'm giving them a maths problem and I want them to show their thinking, if I want them to go through and type a response and add images. If I wanted them to say, do a quick little warm up and welcome, take a photo of take a photo of yourself and share a little bit about yourself. It's a nice way to be able to do that. So I can go through all of my slide content and bring in that interactive feature and, just add that ability in directly as well. So it could be that I'm looking to add a video all about grid references so that they have that quick thing that they need to watch prior to the lesson. There are Nearpod videos directly or YouTube is embedded in as well. So I could go into So I've got here how to use 4-figure grid references. So this is a really great way to be able to do that. So I'm actually going to go in with this one here and I can tap save. Now, what's nice about this is that Nearpod added this over the summer is the ability to add an activity in. So in a similar way to Edpuzzle, if you've seen that before, I think we've had sessions on previous AppsEvents summits about that, is that you can go through. So we could pick up a specific point. So for example, here, I can add an activity in and I can bring in a open-ended question and ask my students, what is the 4-figure grid reference shown? and just tap save. So again, that video will pause and the students will be asked that question. And then I can move on, so I could jump further in and again go in with another activity as well. So whenever I move this will move that exact one. Otherwise, I just need to go through and play. And again, I can jump into the next section and I might ask them again where another prompt is as well. You can always change the playback speed as well. So if it's a really slow video and you want to speed it up for them, you can go through and do that. And you can also go in and trim the video. So if it's too long and you don't want that 5-minute video, you can go through and do that and just tap on save. Now, once all of that content is set up and ready for your lesson, it's just a matter of remembering to use the save and go to Nearpod rather than just the normal present mode within Slides. So we take this into Nearpod, and what that then does is it will then save it and again give you that option to go into live or student paced mode. And I am conscious that it is 2:30, which is my time up. So I am just going to very quickly jump back into my slide deck, if that's okay, Ben, and just quickly go through sort of the different features there. So just to sort of very quickly mention that there is a difference between sort of that free version and the district version, which is what we use. As a trust, we just purely needed to be able to have that option to have more children participating in a lesson at once. And then obviously to be able to use other content that's available. And, you know, but regardless of that, you can always bring in existing PowerPoints and Google Slides. So, you know, we always say to teachers, you know, add that interactive element to your slides, your teacher input that you'd always have at the start of a lesson. And this is just a quick little GIF that shows you sort of those tools that are directly within Slides. And then there is a Nearpod assignment add-on to Classroom as well. So this just makes it really easy to be able to go through and assign it in Classroom if that's something that you're using as well. And there is a Nearpod Help Center as well where they run lots of live webinars as well that you can go through and access. So if I've gone too fast, I've gone over too much, feel free to go back and have a look at that. And in saying that, one thing that I just wanted to mention as well is that I love certifications for educators, and as a trust, we really empower our educators to go through and earn their certifications for the different EdTech apps that they use. There are so many out there, so I do have a site and all of these are hyperlinked directly, and so that you can go through and actually learn how to use the tools that you've learnt today, so things like Peardeck and Nearpod, and, you know, really walk away equipped in how to use that tool really effectively as well. And they released a special one for distance learning as well. So I will come back in, Ben, so thank you.
I'm just really glad you mentioned Badged Ed, or yeah, your site that brings us all together, because I was just going to jump in and say, don't forget to mention how they can get certifications on this as well. So awesome. Thank you for sharing. I don't know if you're able to keep up with the chat, but I think generally there's a bit of gained awareness of Nearpod. I think people are going to have a look at that. Yeah. There was obviously a bit of discussion around, the GDPR compliance of that and other tools. And I think, here we go. Ryan kind of sums it up. There you go. So really appreciate your time, especially during half term, and sharing that with us. Any final questions, please put them in the chat and we'll have a look. The speeding up the video and the student view were, I think, the two kind of key takeaways there of those little niche features where you're like, that is useful. So that was really good that you found those ones. Awesome. And
there's lots of great maths content as well. I know you're a previous maths teacher, so I always love looking at that. And there's lots of great built-in physics examples as well, and science content. So, you know, in the classroom where we sort of don't have that functionality to go through and demo what certain things look like in a science lesson with lights and torches and color and mirrors and things like that, that's all actually live that you can access within Nearpod. So really cool.
That's a really useful point. And obviously with things, you also mentioned Flipgrid, and there's other options as well for that how do you experience what you might have done in the classroom virtually. And I think there's some interesting things, ThinkLink, another one where there's those options to have a bit more of an experiential situation, even if you can't have everyone in the classroom at the same time.
Most definitely.
Awesome. So thank you very much. I'll let you get on with the rest of your half term. Please do try and take some sort of a break. And thank you again. So yeah, any comments, please drop them in for Rachel. Cheers, Rachel.
Bye.
I'm going to bring Veronica back in. Hey, Veronica. Just let me unmute you. Are we unmuting? We're both unmuting each other at the same time. Do you want to, if you want to do that? Yeah, so I'll bring Veronica back in. And just a final thanks to ACER for making these free events possible. So we continue to offer them thanks to ACER's support, which means we can keep on providing you with that quality content from quality educators. So just a reminder, if you haven't spotted at the beginning, there is a chance to get some free bootcamp slots if you want to get your level 1 or level 2. We have online bootcamps going on all the time. And if you sign up via that form, you might be able to get yourself a free ticket to one of those. We also have a summit we're about to announce. On the very short-term one, there's an opportunity to attend summit sessions on the 7th and 8th of November, but then there's also a repeat of that in March. So look out for announcements related to that. So you can sign up for the mailing list, or you can just follow the AppsEvents social media accounts, and you'll be able to see about those events coming up. So you've got a range of sessions supporting the American School in London, but that's available for some externals to join too. So yeah, we'll keep those coming to you. And the other thing, again, the ISTE certification. For those of you looking to widen your expertise around the use of technology in the classroom, the ISTE certification is a great way to sort of develop those standards and see where those can be applied in the classroom. And yeah, for myself and Veronica, if you want to sign up, we've got some online events coming up for ISTE. Equally, if you're looking for any training, just get in touch with either of us and we can sort that out for you across UK, the US and mainland Europe. I double check now as to what Brexit stage we're at, as to what I say. Yeah. Thank you for your support during that, Veronica. Anything that I have missed that we need to mention before we sign off?
Thank you so much, our speakers. Really appreciate your participation. And also thank you all for your attention and for watching us. So please feel free to join us for the next one, taking place on 7th of November. And you can find our additional upcoming events on the website. I added the link, so please check our website all the time.
Awesome.
Take care.
Got lots of training coming up. So thank you very much. Cheers, everyone. Have a great day.